All right. Hello. Hello. Is my sound working? I think it is. It's good to have you here for this edition of the Scale Up Leader. What we're going to do today is talk about weekly business reviews. Now, this is a session that I haven't really scripted. I haven't really planned. I'm kind of doing it impromptu. If you're watching this live, drop a message in. I'd love to hear where you're coming from. Let me just turn that sound off so I don't get echo. I'd love to hear if you have any questions. Feel free to drop them in the comments anywhere, whether you're on YouTube or on LinkedIn or any of those places. Drop them in the comments. I'd love to hear from you. If you're watching this as a replay, it's great to hear you. Thanks very much for joining. And I hope, and feel free to ask questions and I'll get back to you with those questions. Now, as I said, I hope that let me just check that this is actually working. Is it? I think it's working. I'm hoping that sound, do I have sound? Let me hear. Am I working? Yes, okay. So we are working, we have sound, it's working well. Cool. All right. We may have to edit this. Okay. So what we're going to do is talk about weekly business reviews. Now, why weekly business reviews? What's so exciting about this, and why am I doing this impromptu without scripting, without sort of really planning it? And what am I doing with this diagram here? So, what I'm going to do is talk about the reason I'm doing this. I just had three clients, three had the same problem, and this is the solution. And it's worked really well. So I want to share it with you as a solution that you can use and use in your organization, whether it's right, whether you're in an executive team or team within the organization, about how you can use this within a team in your organization a little later. So have a look at this. This is the idea. What we want to do is, let me talk about the problem first. The problem tends to be that you've got an organization and not everyone in the organization has the same common view of the data. And what that means, if you don't have a common view of understanding of the data, that it's very hard to prioritize features. It's really hard to create a strategy. It's really hard to align efforts, hard to collaborate, hard to have operational excellence if you don't understand the same stuff. There's a lot of friction and it's really hard to win. That's what you're really trying to do in business. You're trying to win. So what we're going to do is try and get your executive team, your management team, or your leadership team, level of the organization you're in, have a common view of the business. So what we're going to do is think of the business like this. Now, I hope you can still hear me. I don't really get much feedback as to whether my microphone's working. I think it is working. Feel free, as I said, to drop a note in the comments where you're watching from and whether this is working. And I will business like this. This is generic, and it doesn't really matter what kind of business you're in. It looks like this. And if it doesn't look like this, it's not a business. So what happens is you have customers or potential customers who have a need. They're unsatisfied. They have some unsatisfied. They go through your machine of your business, and go through marketing and sales of some description. Even if you don't have marketing and sales function, there is some marketing and sales. And then there's a delivery process where you get whatever that value is. Now that could be a service, a physical thing, a digital thing, media, whatever it is. And then they come out satisfied. If they're not satisfied, you've got a different problem. Generally, they're more satisfied than they were when they went in. Otherwise, you wouldn't have a successful business. And at the bottom of this business produces profit. Again, if it's not producing profit, if it's producing a loss, there's a problem there. It's not necessarily you need to fix it. It just is what it is. But that's the business. Now, all of this, everything you're doing, is either running this machine, building this machine, designing this machine, staffing this machine, or securing resources for this machine, getting resources around. Right? But that's everything you do in a business. So that's your what your business looks like, and that's what I want you to understand. Now, depending on your business, it may be more complicated. Maybe you have two funnels. You have a buyer, you have sellers. Maybe you have a segmented funnel. There's some people who they are the same as sellers, but they are sellers, buyers, or producers, consumers, men and women in a dating app. Maybe you have another funnel up here somewhere for partners. Partners come in here, like if you're doing something like advertising, for example, you're at Google, you've got users here, or you've got advertisers here, but you're also a user. Actually, in Google, the user is really, really important. That's a massive piece of the business, but this is where it comes from, advertisers, right? So you want to follow this. You want to look at, okay, all the way through here, we have some numbers that are relevant. And what we're going to do is put those numbers into a spreadsheet. Now, this spreadsheet that I've got here, let me find it. I've got it on my screen. For some reason, it's disappeared from my screen. There it is. So you're on this spreadsheet. The idea with this is that you're taking a simple, really simple spreadsheet. And some people love to use like a really dedicated tool, like some sort of dashboarding tool, some Tableau, or like a dedicated dashboard tool, or whatever. That's fine. But there's a massive advantage in just using a spreadsheet, whether it's Google Sheets, Excel, or something else. The massive advantage is that you can change it really, really easily. There's no fuss about presentation. What you're going to do is put all these metrics, the relevant metrics from your business, into here, right down here. And in this case here, I've got headline metrics. Like this would be things like sales, like new leads and churn, and revenue, right? Something like that. Whatever I think are the biggest headline numbers, and maybe I'll break this down by some things like marketing things. Right? And I've got all those. Every week I have a new, but I can see past. In this case here, on this particular one, I've got this going to the end of September, and I've got the week of year here and a week of quarter here, quarter, and this quarter. You could have this going back forever. You can have one document per year. You can have 5 years of data, whatever it is. But the idea with this is that you're looking at this and you're able to see really, really easily what's happening with sales per year, per quarter, per month, per week, sorry, weekly sales on a regular basis. And you can look at this and get a good feeling for how your machine is operating right now. Right? You do this, you break this down by various things. So you have sales, leads, whatever else you have. And what's going on is in your management team, right? Whether you're an executive team, or in your own team, you put this into this spreadsheet here. So you're having a conversation about this, and everyone's becoming very data, the numbers. Now, the trick to this is that if you're doing this, you want to make sure that you're not fixing this. This is not a fixed document. I referred to this earlier. The spreadsheet, the advantage of the spreadsheet is that it's easier to change. So we're having a conversation about sales, for example. We noticed, for example, that churn is not right. So we got to have some analysis here. Maybe we have this is a 30-day average users, right? Sorry, this is a new user, and we have 28-day average. You're like, okay, what's going on here? We need. This is not really enough. It doesn't give us enough information. So what we do is we say we need some more information. We have a discussion, and then the next week, set is above. Oops, I got the wrong thing. Information here, there, and we call this, for example, we might call this 30-day average, right? This week we might delete that one because it doesn't make sense. Have an average of an average. Delete. So it might be quarter on quarter, right? Ratio. And we start to get numbers in there. Now, why are we doing that? Because when we're looking at this data, we're saying you've got new users. We're seeing these new users. Maybe some number of new users some number of new users on a regular basis, every week, that we're getting like this. We're getting all these new users. Like that. Strange formatting happening here. Let's just get formatting normal. Right? Well, you can see here, but it's super easy for me to get this. You can see the 28 average of these users. Good. That's the right formula there. We've got this here, and I can look at this. I can see that's helpful, but when we're having this discussion on it, we can look at this and say that's not providing us anything useful here. What we really need is our 30-day average. Let's look at that. Maybe we look at the 30-day average here, and we have ratio versus quarter, and now we start to understand how our business is operating. And we're looking at different parts. If you've got a different business, it's going to be very different kinds of numbers. Maybe it's as a B2B service business. Maybe if you've got transactions, tracking, whatever it is. What's happening is you're looking at this and you're saying, for example, transactions, right? If you look at your transaction growth, maybe this number's all over, up and down. So we do. 28-day average, some sort of moving average. We look at it versus the previous quarter. We do some analysis. We're looking at this. This is really important, this transactions number. But we can't control the transactions. What's the input that we need to have transaction proof? And you do some thinking about this, you do some analysis, you what kinds of things drive transactions. It turns out to be new, it turns out to be variable segment, whatever it is. And then you put that in here and you change it so that you're having the right kind of conversations, right? So the goal is to have the right kinds of conversation as you go. Now, yeah, you want to start this off with something as simple as you can. So this is basically you'd have about 10 or 20 metrics there. You've got these numbers in there, you start looking at them, you start reviewing them on a regular basis, start seeing patterns and discovering things that are useful and things that are not useful, uncovering the indicators, uncovering the controllable inputs and all that. And as this gets a bit more complicated, you then start to break down headlines marketing. I might break this down by headlines are all here, and then marketing or GTM marketing and sales are all here. I have this a bit of a deeper thing. And I have a product one or a customer service, or whatever it is that I need to do. Now, the truth of this is that you don't want to have this too complicated, but you need to have it complicated enough. And what you really need to do is have it so that you can see this at a glance and sort of find the interesting numbers that are moving unexpectedly or that are revealing opportunities, and you can deep dive into those when you're looking. And maybe you have some sort of situation where, you know what, churn is our big issue at the moment. We have a big problem with churn. We don't know what's churn. We just know that churn's gone up. So segmentation analysis. And here we have the sizes of our companies, we have geographies, we have verticals that they're in. And we just extract the data. I've just made up data, right? We extract the data. We look at this. We go, okay, something's good. Maybe we'll take these numbers here. Maybe all these numbers. We'll change the coloring. Draw our attention to it. So formats, conditional formatting, color scale. We put a color scale like that. We do minimum value, higher, maximum value can be. I think it's a bit ugly, but that's okay. That's what I wanted. So we can put it like this so that now every week we look at this, we start this patterns. Goodness me, obviously it was a while ago, but goodness me, something happened there. We know that was a big error in the system, and we had a lot of churn there. We know about that. That's what's past. But look, we've got a problem in our customers. Maybe we're looking at this and we're seeing it's all pretty consistent across the countries, across the verticals, or we're finding it's consistent across the sizes, and the real problem is actually in one particular vertical. We're doing this analysis, and maybe we put it onto our graph here. We can sort of see this graph of like, technical problem. Here's what's going on. Why is it that this blue line, the blue line large, why is it this? When you start to look at this, the purpose of this is that you can easily manipulate, surface this data in the meeting. Now, having data in a meeting is not really unusual. It's not an unusual idea. It is a relatively unusual idea to have this on a weekly basis, right? So, and with this, with your leadership team, often it's delegated to some product manager or some person, one person to look at. What you really want to do is have this as something that happens every week. You review as a team, and what you're reviewing this, reviewing the week, looking at the history, and every week you're looking at this and trying to find out, does something happen here? Do we need to trigger an action that triggers your operational changes? Like, wrong here, we need to do something. Let's get an orange marker here. We need to do something here. So we're going to have an action item in our marketing area here, and what we're going to do is fix that piece of marketing. It's a simple operational thing. Maybe that's already happening because hopefully your teams are operating and seeing this, but you look at some marketing, what's happening here? Well, we know about this. We've been working on it for a week since Tuesday, and the new question is now, well, how do we make sure we all know about it? We all know about this, right? So you sort of get a finger on the pulse more rapidly. So we do that kind of action item. Maybe we're in a situation where we really don't know what's going on. We found something unusual, churn situation. So we have to trigger off some. We need to do some analysis, root cause analysis, some investigation. You take an action, the data guy to go fix that thing, whatever it is. Go and understand. Maybe it's something like we're talking about there where we want to improve the data. We know that happen regularly. We've got this churn number. Churn's really helpful, but actually we need to break this down by the right segments. So we need to do analysis to find out what the right segments are, and then we're going to put this into a second sheet or another sheet to have this to be improving. Okay, right? So that's the kind of thing you're doing. Now, what's happening when you like, is not only are you getting attention on the operation, and you're getting an ability to improve operational what's happening in your business, taking action, making sure that you need to take a step back from this. You're putting systems in place to improve your systems to improve your operations on a more deeper basis. Take that action. And you're also, as a leadership team, getting really familiar with cross-functional data. Now, let's say you're executive team, you have this business. What I think is really exciting is delivery. So normally, let's just use. So normally this would have product, engineering, customer service, and things, people like that, right? So you might have an executive for these people right, across the board. Now, what often happens is your marketing team, they're paying attention here, and sales is paying attention to sales process. Engineering and customer service often are a bit more. They're paying attention down here about what's happening in delivery, maybe products looking at more sales and marketing, hopefully, and they're involved in this. But what we're trying to do here is make sure that each one of these teams is understanding of the rest. So here's this guy paying attention there, right? But we want to make sure that our CFO is paying attention to our marketing. The marketing person really understands how customers support the market. Now, what's happening here is then you're looking at this spreadsheet. I might have to do this with some actual data in here. I made up data that's not quite detailed enough. Let's pull this up. So you're in here and you're looking at various data. Right? What you want is for your engineering person, they go through this. The way you'll run this meeting, by the way, is you'll go through this and you say, okay, here's this. Let's look at the marketing numbers. Let's look at the sales numbers, and you'll be asking your cross-functional team, what do you think? What's going on? Do we have any questions? Is there anything that looks weird? Anything that looks like a problem, opportunity? And everyone's supposed to look at this. Now, really want to is not just that your marketing, your engineering, your head of CTO or your VP of engineering is also looking at the marketing number. I don't understand why is it that this number here is changing like that this week? Like it's really changing. What's happening? Now we start to get this cross-functional understanding in your team that you have to have a high level of trust to be able to do this. That's super important. Let's assume you do, or let's assume you're building that. That's great. Beyond that, you also then have the marketing going and looking at the customer support and saying, "Hey, well, customer support seems to have a lot of tickets. What's happening here?" Because maybe what's happening is customer support gets a lot of tickets because 6 months ago, marketing did a campaign that attracted a whole lot of wrong kinds of right. And now we've got customer support who are actually client. Now, when they start to understand each other's data, you get a couple of things happening. One is that people understand the business much better across the board, right? So you get insights. More than that, you start to build a team. That's really good. More than that, engineering AI is going to have a different way of looking at things to marketing person and to salespeople, to customer service, and to product, and to CFO. Right? They look at different analytical hats. Some of them are very what's the word? Analytical, and some of them are very qualitative, and some of them are very intuitive, and some of them have big understanding and big background in your industry, and some are from a different industry. But these questions, and some of those questions are like dumb questions, right? What's happening here? Well, this is how marketing works. We explain how marketing works. Now, what's happening is that marketing is now explaining how marketing works to engineering. Everyone starts to understand how marketing works. Good. Engineering is asking a question, and because it comes from left field, about helps marketing have that light bulb moment. Ah, interesting. You know what? We should automate that. We could do something. Why is that so stuff, right? So you're doing this. There are two other things that I want to talk about in relation to this. And one of them is that while you're doing this, you've got this data going. That's really good. Now introduce anecdotes. Okay, now introduce anecdotes. And introduce anecdotes, um, you get this going, right? So you've got the data, all this data, an anecdote that says, how many sales has noticed that they're getting more people seeing the objective with this kind of objection. We don't increase the number of this kind of objection. And an example of that is this customer X, who's blah 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 blah. We, 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 um, uh, we don't think that we don't perceive ours as reliable. And we look at data and go, but hang on a minute, reliability is really high. Why is he saying that? Now, what we do based on that anecdote, these anecdotes can come from customers, marketing funnel, the sales funnel, customer service, and delivery, and onboarding, or even intern. Right? Look at the data and say, well, is this signal that we've got some problems? Do we have to dig into this further? Do we have to understand what's, are we, do we have the right data that's telling us this? Is this a problem that we're not seeing? Don't segment our data in the right way. So we have and the anecdotes together. We use the anecdotes to drive our investigation and understand what's really going on, and that helps us to uncover these. Now, it's quite possible that there's one person who just happens to be who complains about stuff, and you want to look at this anecdote and say, well, he's actually complaining, this customer. Is there any reason why this is a real problem, or is this a complaining customer that fixed one problem? And you need to be able to distinguish between data. So, so that's one thing. The other thing that I wanted to talk about is actually that your business is more complicated than this, right? This is a simplification. There are lots of pieces to the puzzle. There's multiple sales funnels. There's a piece of marketing over here, which is event marketing, and then there's marketing like this, and whatever you've got, right? There's an email newsletter at this point here, right? And you can break this down and do this kind of thing. That's pieces very complicated. You can do this same thing within your organization for this one component of your business, right? That's where you're you as a team, if you're running this piece here, what you do is you blow it into here's the component. This might be the user interface or the let's say the email component. I don't know. It's a piece. It's a part of the product, and you have some numbers associated with that. But you extract out some of the key numbers here, so you can understand how your piece fits into overall overall machine. The other thing to think about here is that if you're a product team, for example, if you're an engineering team, you actually have another machine, your other machines. It takes user stories, right? And it turns them into code that runs on some sort of computer. Excuse my terrible drawing, I'm not a drawer. But this is called a Scrum, right? Or an Agile or whatever you're doing. The team, software development team, you're doing various things. You have this other machine here. You can do the same thing with that machine. This machine is all about how you're building this machine, right? That's what that machine is doing. You're developing code, you're building this machine. But you can instrument that and that same kind of process in this area here. Now, you don't necessarily want marketers getting deep into how your processes work, but within your team, you do want to understand how this process is working, get everyone from your team, or at least the leaders of the team, across the board understanding this. Just cross-functionally. Maybe have some stakeholders who come and look at this as well, right? Whatever it is, but maybe you have a meeting here, right? Take a meeting and a sub meeting, and maybe there's a component meeting. Whatever it is, you're bringing these this kind of information on a regular weekly basis to the forefront of your organization, right? So you can actually see on a regular basis. You're improving the data and so on. Now, the benefit of this, as I say, is that the benefit of this, as I said, is that you get a deep cross-functional understanding of everything that's going on. There it is. Understanding, you get a shared knowledge about things, integrate data and anecdotes, and this informs strategy, informs decisions, it makes action happen, it helps build the team on a common basis of understanding, and very importantly, if you do this every week, which feels to it, honestly, every week feels much, but if you do it every week, if you actually do it every week, then you start to develop this familiarity, regular cadence of action happening. We know most of the data, we're really familiar with it. Here it is, this is you're missing a week, life goes on. But if you do a month, for example, every month, everyone's like, what's going on here? We're not learning on a frequent enough basis. You actually have to look quite frequent. And you want to have that regular cadence, make sure that actions. All right, I've rambled enough. I hope this was useful. I hope it's interesting. I hope some people found this useful. My system here doesn't tell me anything about anyone joining. We don't know whether you're actually listening. So I'd love to hear if you found this useful, hear from you. I'd love to hear a message if you found this useful. If you're watching the replay, please do send me a message, put a comment on there, whatever you think is useful, would be really helpful. If you're interested in more of this, I'm happy to share more on this topic. I'm actually planning to put this into a slightly more structured presentation. I just wanted to do it right now because I'm overcaffeinated and had just delivered it to 2 customers and thought it was really useful. So let me know how it goes. Happy to hear from you. Have a great day and scale well.